Hi, I'm Bastian, and today we're going to be tying some traditional style streamer and bucktail patterns. Most of these are 70 or so years old. Kind of a hard decision as to which patterns to include, so I thought I would try to do a representation of some of the traditional New England style landlocked salmon and brook trout patterns and various techniques that would go along with those. First thing off, we're going to use 8x long hooks. Now these are also traditional for that, and for these I prefer to use these Mike Martinick style Rangeley streamer that were made by Gaelic Supreme in England. They've got a traditional style and so on, very similar to what a lot of the hooks that were made back in the 20s, 30s, and 40s by some of the older manufacturers that are no longer available. This first pattern that I'd like to do is a variation of the Black Ghost. One of the famous patterns was invented in the 30s or 40s. I'm going to do a slight variation because different recipes say that the body can be either black floss or wool. So I'm going to do a wool body version, and I'm going to just use yellow fibers for the tail and for the throat on it. Some of those also call for variations of golden pheasant crest. For the underbody on this, I'm using Danville's 3/0 monocord simply because I want to lay a thread base down on the shank of the hook, and this stuff being a larger size thread will accomplish that purpose a little bit quicker. These Gaelic Supreme hooks are a little bit more stout and stiffer shank than what the Mustad version, which would be a number 94720, I believe, that is also an 8x long hook. But I just love the quality and the appearance of these Gaelic Supreme hooks. They really do a nice job in the finished rendition of these traditional style patterns. So we've laid down a thread base starting at the head of the fly, keeping a little bit of bare thread space behind the eye of the hook. And I usually like to tie in the tail, or if there's any tip involved, pretty much above the barb of the hook. So we're back that far. I'm going to take a yellow schlappen feather. I've stripped off the fluff. Just a small bunch of barbs here. Pull those out and tie them in. Now for length on here, normally it's a little bit more than the gap of the hook. You know, it could be though that you could use pretty much the gap of the hook as your formula for length on a tail. But there are so many different individual patterns in New England with the various personalities up there. You know, Carrie Stevens, Bert Quimby, Austin Hogan, Chief Nidaba, on and on. There's just a lot of ones that were popular in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and then a later generation that have come along. But some of their recipes specify, you know, longer tails and wings that are, you know, 1.5 times the length of the hook and so on. But we're going to tie this pattern pretty much as a traditional style the way I see it. And I don't want to start to say too much about what's right and what's wrong, because here again you do have some variations. It does have a silver rib, and I'm going to use medium-sized, the 14 Mylar for this. You could also use, obviously, the French tinsel, would probably be a little bit more durable. And this needs to be silver, and I just had it tied in backwards there, facing the gold on the hook shank. So we're going to tie that in, and then I'm going to use this yarn, which is actually multi-stranded. It's a crewel yarn that I buy, C-R-E-W-E-L, from Hilly's in Williamsport. There's actually 2 strands, or I could double this up. It comes 3 strands, depending on how fat you want the body to be. But we're going to go ahead and I'm going to select about a 12-inch piece here.